To a traumatized nervous system, intimacy feels exactly like an attack. There is a moment you know well. It is the silence that follows the vulnerability. You have just shared your heart, or perhaps a moment of profound closeness occurred between you, a spark, a laugh, a feeling of finally, we are here. And then the wall comes down. The drawbridge raises. The energy shifts from warm to cold, from present to absent. If you are the holder of space, the one who feels deeply and sees clearly, this moment is devastating. It feels like a rejection of your essence. You ask yourself, if the love was so good, why did he run? If the connection was real, why is he treating it like a crime? You are tired. I know you are tired. You've spent years trying to decode this silence, twisting yourself into knots, wondering if you were too much or perhaps not enough. But I invite you to put down that burden for a moment, because what you are witnessing is not a lack of love. It is not a lack of desire. What you are witnessing is a biological short circuit. You are witnessing the collision between an infinite soul and a finite, frightened nervous system. Today, we are going to look at the architecture of this reaction. We are going to stop taking the silence personally and start understanding it biologically and spiritually. Because when you understand the mechanics of the machine, you no longer have to be crushed by its malfunction. There's a specific silence that you know too well. It is the silence that follows the vulnerability. You have just shared your heart, or perhaps a moment of profound closeness occurred between you, a spark, a laugh, a feeling of finally arriving at home. And then the wall comes down. The drawbridge raises, the energy shifts from warm to cold, from present to absent. If you are the holder of space, the one who feels deeply and sees clearly, this moment is devastating. It feels like a rejection of your essence. You ask yourself, if the love was so good, why did he run? If the connection was real, why is he treating it like a crime? You are tired. You have spent years trying to decode this silence, twisting yourself into knots, wondering if you were too much or perhaps not enough. But I invite you to put down that burden for a moment, because what you are witnessing is not a lack of love. It is not a lack of desire. What you are witnessing is a biological short circuit. You are witnessing the collision between an infinite soul and a finite, frightened nervous system. Let us look at this through the lens of the masculine nervous system. When we speak of the masculine here, we are not just speaking of gender. We are speaking of an energy that thrives on structure, purpose, and containment. For the unawakened counterpart, the man who has not yet integrated his shadow, his entire identity is built on the illusion of control. He is the architect of his own reality. He builds walls to keep the chaos out. He builds structures to feel competent. His sense of safety is derived from his ability to predict and manage his environment. Now, enter you. You represent the ocean. You represent the feminine chaos, the beautiful, creative, destructive, life-giving force of emotion and intuition. When you offer him deep intimacy, you're not just offering affection. You're offering the ocean to a man holding a teacup. Science gives us a language for this. It is called the polyvagal theory. Inside the human brain, there is an ancient sentinel called the amygdala. Its only job is to scan for threats. For millions of years, threats looked like tigers, famine, or war. But for the modern, unhealed masculine, the threat has changed. The threat is no longer a predator. The threat is engulfment. When the connection between you becomes too deep, his nervous system registers a spike in intensity. To you, that intensity feels like passion. To him, it feels like a loss of structural integrity. His brain asks, if I let this energy in, will I survive? Will I lose myself? Will I be consumed? And because his nervous system is wired for survival, not for bliss, it pulls the emergency brake. We must understand that this internal sentinel does not speak English. It does not understand logic or your reassurances or the history of your relationship. It speaks only in the language of visceral sensation. When the emotional voltage gets too high, the sentinel perceives a breach in the perimeter. It signals that the walls of the self are dissolving. For a man whose identity is constructed around being separate, autonomous, and in control, the sensation of merging with another person feels dangerously like dying. It is the death of the ego, and to the uninitiated nervous system, the death of the ego feels identical to the death of the body. This is the fight or flight response. But he cannot fight you because he loves you. So he flees, or he freezes, he goes numb, he dissociates, he looks at you with dead eyes, or he creates a conflict out of thin air just to break the tension. This is not malice, it is a biological override. The nervous system perceives the vulnerability of love as dangerous as a physical attack. The shutdown is his way of regulating a voltage that has become too high for his wires to carry. I want you to imagine a house with old wiring. If you plug a powerful high-voltage appliance into an outlet that isn't grounded, the circuit breaker trips. The lights go out. Now, when the lights go out, do you scream at the house? Do you hate the electricity? No. You understand that the breaker tripped to save the house from burning down. Your unawakened counterpart is tripping his circuit breaker. His withdrawal is a safety mechanism. He is not running away from you. He is running to preserve his sense of self. In his mind, intimacy equates to vulnerability. Vulnerability equates to weakness. And in the archaic masculine programming, weakness equates to death. So, when things get too good, his internal alarm sounds. He feels exposed. He feels out of control. And to regain control, he must separate from the source of the overwhelm, which is you. This is the tragedy of the unhealed masculine. He craves the water, but he is terrified of drowning. He looks at you and sees the thing he wants most in the world, but his body reacts as if he is standing on the edge of a cliff. This realization is not an excuse for his behavior. It does not mean you must tolerate abuse or neglect, but it offers you clarity. It means his silence is not a commentary on your worth. It is a commentary on his capacity. You are holding a frequency of love that is high, intense, and pure. He is operating with a nervous system that is currently calibrated for survival and defense. The friction you feel is merely the gap between those two realities. Here is where we must fundamentally shift our perspective. We must move from the story of rejection to the story of regulation. I want you to imagine a house that was built many years ago. It is a sturdy house, built for survival, with thick walls and narrow windows. But the wiring inside this house is old. It was installed to handle the basic necessities of life: a simple lamp, a small radio, the bare minimum required to function. It was never designed to carry a high voltage current. Now, imagine that you come along. You are not a simple lamp. You are a generator of immense power. You are the lightning. You bring a frequency of love, connection, and emotional intensity that is vast and undeniable. You plug this powerful, high-voltage energy into the outlet of that old house. What happens? The lights do not just flicker. The circuit breaker trips. The house goes dark. When the lights go out, your immediate reaction is likely one of pain. You stand in the sudden darkness, and you assume something terrible has happened. You assume the house has rejected the electricity. You might even scream at the walls, asking why they have shut you out. You might hate the electricity itself, believing that your love is too much or that your needs are destructive. But I invite you to look at this dynamic through the eyes of the electrician, not the eyes of the wounded heart. The circuit breaker did not trip because the house hates the electricity. The circuit breaker tripped to save the house from burning down. Your unawakened counterpart is tripping his circuit breaker. This is the crucial paradigm shift you must make to preserve your own sanity. His withdrawal is a safety mechanism. He is not running away from you. He is running to preserve his structural integrity. You must understand that for the masculine energy that has not yet done its deep inner work, the primary directive is stability. He builds his identity on being solid, separate, and in control. He defines himself by his edges. When he is alone, or when the relationship is superficial, his edges are clear. He knows where he ends and where the world begins. He feels safe. But deep intimacy acts as a solvent. It dissolves boundaries. When you share a moment of profound love, when you look into his eyes and see his soul, you are melting the edges of his ego. To you, this merging feels like bliss. It feels like the ultimate goal of union. But to his nervous system, this merging feels like a catastrophe. His internal alarm system begins to scream. It warns him that he is losing himself. It warns him that if he lets this energy in, the structure of his reality will collapse. The voltage is simply too high for his current wiring to carry without overheating. In his mind, there is a subconscious equation running in the background. Intimacy equates to vulnerability. Vulnerability equates to weakness. And in the archaic biological programming of the masculine, weakness equates to death. This is not a melodramatic metaphor. It is a biological reality. For thousands of years, the man who was vulnerable was the man who did not survive. So, when things get too good, when the love feels too real, his internal sentinel perceives a threat. It does not see a loving partner. It sees a tidal wave that threatens to wash away the foundation of his house. He feels exposed. He feels out of control. And to a man, the feeling of being out of control is intolerable. So, to regain his sense of self, to reset the breaker, he must separate from the source of the overwhelm. That source is you. He pulls away to cool down the wires. He goes silent to rebuild his walls. This is the tragedy of the unhealed masculine. He craves the water, but he is terrified of drowning. He looks at you and sees the thing he wants most in the world: the warmth, the light, the connection. but his body reacts as if he is standing on the edge of a cliff. This realization is not an excuse for his behavior. It does not mean you must tolerate abuse, neglect, or indefinite silence, but it offers you a profound clarity that dissolves your own shame. It means his silence is not a commentary on your worth. It is a commentary on his capacity. You are holding a frequency of love that is high, intense, and pure. He is operating with a nervous system that is currently calibrated for survival and defense. The friction you feel is the gap between those two realities. When you understand this, you stop taking the darkness personally. You realize that you are not too much. You are simply a high voltage energy interacting with a low voltage system. The work then is not to dim your light so that the breaker doesn't trip. The work is to understand that his system needs time, patience, and safety to upgrade its wiring. You stop banging on the door of the dark house, demanding to be let in. Instead, you stand outside, holding your own light, knowing that he will lower the drawbridge only when he realizes that the fire you bring is there to warm him, not to consume him. This is the shift from anxiety to compassion. It is the shift from chasing to holding your ground. And it is the only foundation upon which a true, lasting union can be built. So, what does the holder of space do with this information? If you identify as the anxious heart, your instinct is to chase. You want to knock on the door, fix the wiring, and force the lights back on. You want to explain, to plead, to make him understand your intentions. But you must realize that you cannot explain safety to a nervous system that is in survival mode. Words do not reach the amygdala. Logic does not penetrate the walls of a fortress built for defense. Only energy can pass through. Here is how we build a structure, an architecture of intimacy that feels safe enough for him to stay. We must move from the realm of demand into the realm of invitation. The first shift is a concept borrowed from chemistry called titration. In a laboratory, titration is the process of adding a potent solution drop by drop to another liquid to avoid a volatile reaction or an explosion. In relationships, this means slowing down the pour. We often want to merge completely. We crave the all-consuming love that sweeps us off our feet. But for a nervous system that fears engulfment, the concept of all-consuming is not romantic. It is terrifying. It signals the end of autonomy. Therefore, you must practice the art of the micro-connection. Share a moment of depth, a genuine laugh, a touch of the hand, and then, this is the crucial part, you must be the one to pull back slightly. You return to your own center. You let the energy settle. You show him, through your actions, that intimacy is not a trap. You show him that he can come close to the fire and then step back into the cool air without being punished, without being questioned else, and without being chased. By pacing the connection, you allow his window of tolerance to expand naturally. You are teaching his nervous system that connection is safe because it is not permanent. It has a rhythm. It breathes. The second shift is the most difficult, yet the most transformative. You must learn to regulate your own signal. When he pulls away, your nervous system likely screams a warning of abandonment. You go into your own fight or flight response. You become anxious, grasping, or demanding. You vibrate with the frequency of fear. Here is the secret of the mirror neurons. He can feel your anxiety. He can feel the vacuum of your need. If you are anxious, his brain confirms the threat. It says to him, see, I was right to withdraw. There is danger here. She's unstable. I must protect myself. You must become the anchor. When he withdraws, you must remain rooted in your own reality. You must tend to your own garden. If you can stay calm and regulated when he disconnects, you disrupt the pattern. You signal to his subconscious that you are safe. You signal that you are not destroyed by his distance. You are here, whole and complete, regardless of his proximity. Safety is contagious. When you stop vibrating with the fear of loss, he stops vibrating with the fear of engulfment. You become a lighthouse that stands firm, proving that the shore is safe to return to. The third shift requires changing the geometry of your connection. We call this parallel presence. The feminine energy often seeks to connect through face-to-face emotional processing. We want to look into the eyes. We want to talk about feelings. We want to analyze the relationship. But for the masculine, face-to-face intensity can feel like an interrogation. It can feel like a spotlight is being shined on his inadequacies. The masculine has evolved to connect shoulder to shoulder. Men bond while facing a common goal, a common horizon, or a common task. If the deep talks are triggering his shutdown, you must shift the architecture. Build intimacy through shared action. Walk side by side. Build something together. Drive in the car where eye contact is not required. Allow the connection to happen in the silence of doing rather than the pressure of speaking. This bypasses the analytical defense systems. It allows his nervous system to co-regulate with yours without the threat of being analyzed. It is in these quiet, shoulder-to-shoulder moments that the drawbridge often lowers, all on its own. He realizes you are not an examiner. You are a companion. By implementing these shifts, you are not manipulating him. You are creating a safe container. You are respecting the biological reality of his limitations while holding space for his potential. You are moving from a dynamic of pursuit to a dynamic of presence. You are no longer trying to break down his walls. You are simply making the space outside the walls so warm, so safe, and so inviting that he eventually chooses to walk out the door and meet you there. This is how you expand the window. This is how you build a love that can breathe. We are speaking of a profound restructuring of how we view love. We have been taught that love is a storm, a dramatic, sweeping force, and it is. But a storm cannot be a home. If you want a relationship that lasts, you are not just weathering a storm. You are building a temple, and a temple requires engineering. It requires a foundation that can hold the weight of the truth. Your partner, this unawakened counterpart, is not your enemy. He is a soul trapped in a biological cage of fear, and you, the holder of space, are not his savior. You are the invitation. You are the invitation to a new way of being. By understanding his nervous system, you stop taking his fear personally. By regulating your own heart, you become a lighthouse that does not flicker when the waves get high. This is the work. It is not easy work. It is the work of the mature soul. It requires you to be so full of your own essence that his presence or absence does not define your worth. So as you move through your day, observe the architecture. Notice when the walls go up. Notice when the breath shallows. And instead of forcing the door, simply stand firm in your own light. The safest place for him to land is not in your arms, but in your peace. Love is a skill, not just a feeling. It is a practice of biology as much as it is a practice of spirit. If this perspective shifted something in your internal architecture today, consider how you are currently building your foundation. Are you trying to force a current through a wire that cannot hold it? Or are you willing to upgrade the system slowly with patience? Reflect on this. And until next time, tend to your own temple.